What if one of the most powerful nighttime recovery tools for your body has been sitting quietly in your kitchen this entire time? Not in a prescription bottle, not in a trendy supplement, but in a simple dark glass bottle of extra virgin olive oil. Most people think of olive oil as something you drizzle over salad or cook vegetables with. But researchers studying aging, inflammation, brain health, and metabolism have uncovered something fascinating. When consumed in the evening, especially before bed, olive oil may support several of the body's most important overnight repair systems. And that matters more as we age because your body does its deepest healing while you sleep. During the night, your brain clears metabolic waste, your muscles rebuild damaged tissue, your liver processes toxins, your blood vessels relax and repair, your immune system recalibrates itself. Even your skin regenerates more rapidly during deep sleep. But here's the problem. Many adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are not getting the quality of sleep or cellular recovery they once did. And often, it's not because the body is broken, it's because the body is missing the signals and nutrients it needs to perform these natural repair processes efficiently. What's happening in your body is not random, it's physiological. Inflammation rises, blood sugar becomes less stable overnight, digestive function slows, the brain becomes more vulnerable to oxidative stress, and over time, these small disruptions accumulate into fatigue, stiffness, poor sleep, brain fog, and accelerated aging. And if any of that sounds familiar, it's not something you should dismiss as just getting older. Because many people quietly live with these changes without realizing their body is still capable of repair. Sometimes it just needs the right support at the right time. You might have noticed nights where you fall asleep easily, but wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. for no clear reason. Or mornings where your joints feel stiff even before you've stepped out of bed. Or that subtle mental fog that makes simple tasks feel heavier than they used to. These are not random inconveniences, they are signals. And once you start paying attention to them, a different picture of aging begins to emerge, one where decline is not inevitable, but often influenced by daily patterns, especially what happens in the hours before sleep. Tonight, I want you to think about your own routine, not as something complicated, but as something deeply biological. Because your body at night is not passive, it is actively rebuilding you. The question is whether it has what it needs to do that job efficiently. And sometimes, the answer is surprisingly simple. My name is Dr. NATALIA WRIGHT, and welcome to Dr. NATALIA WRIGHT Senior Health. Here, we focus on understanding aging not as a slow loss, but as a process we can actively influence through science-backed, practical choices that fit into real life. And tonight's topic is one of those rare examples where something simple in your kitchen may quietly influence how well your body recovers while you sleep. As we go deeper into this, I want you to stay present with your own experience. Because as we talk about sleep, inflammation, heart health, memory, and metabolism, I want you to notice what resonates with you personally. Do you wake up feeling rested or drained? Do you feel your energy dipping earlier in the day than it used to? Has your body started to feel like it takes longer to recover from even small stresses? These are not just health questions, they are clues about how your internal systems are functioning right now. What makes this discussion especially interesting is not just what olive oil is, but when it is used. Timing, as we will explore, may change how the body responds to nutrients in ways most people never consider. The same substance can behave differently depending on whether it is consumed during activity or during rest, during digestion or during repair. And nighttime, as you will see, is a very specific biological window. Now, before we go deeper into the science of how this works inside the body, I want to connect with you on something more personal. Think about the last time you had a truly restorative night of sleep. Not just enough hours in bed, but the kind of sleep where you woke up and felt like your body had actually reset itself. For many people over 60, that experience becomes less frequent, and they often cannot explain why. If that has been your experience, you are not alone, and there are reasons for it that go far beyond stress or routine. The truth is, your body is still trying to repair itself every single night. The processes have not stopped. What changes with age is efficiency, sensitivity to inflammation, and the availability of certain supportive compounds that help regulate those processes. And this is where something as simple as extra virgin olive oil begins to enter a much more interesting scientific conversation. Inside high-quality olive oil are compounds called polyphenols, natural plant-based molecules that interact with inflammation pathways, vascular function, gut microbiota, and even neurological activity. One of these compounds, often studied in longevity research, is especially interesting because it appears to influence the same inflammatory pathways involved in pain and chronic disease. But what makes it even more fascinating is that these effects may become more relevant during the body's overnight recovery phase. At night, your physiology shifts, your heart rate slows, your breathing becomes deeper, your digestive system reduces activity, and your brain enters cycles of repair and cleanup. It is during this window that small biological signals can have amplified effects. In other words, what you expose your body to before sleep may not just be processed, it may be integrated into repair itself. So tonight, we are going to explore what actually happens when a small amount of extra virgin olive oil is taken before bed on a consistent basis. Not as a miracle solution and not as a replacement for medical care, but as a lens into how the body's natural systems respond to simple nutritional timing. We will look at sleep quality, inflammation, heart and artery function, digestion, brain health, metabolism, and muscle recovery, all through the lens of overnight biology. And I want you to stay with me closely because what we uncover starts with something many people overlook completely: how inflammation in the brain quietly affects sleep itself, and why that alone can shape how you feel every single morning. When we look deeper into this connection between inflammation in the brain and sleep quality, something important begins to stand out. Sleep is not just a passive state where the body shuts down. It is an active neurological event where repair systems turn on in very precise sequences. And when inflammation is present in the brain, even at low levels, those sequences do not run as smoothly. Signals that regulate melatonin become weaker, deep sleep cycles become shorter, and the brain's ability to fully transition into restorative phases becomes fragmented. That is often why some people report sleeping through the night in terms of hours, yet still waking up feeling like they never truly rested. This is where the conversation around extra virgin olive oil becomes more interesting than most people expect, because certain compounds in olive oil, particularly its polyphenols, are being studied for their influence on inflammatory signaling pathways that directly affect neurological calmness. When inflammation inside the brain is reduced, even slightly, the nervous system is more able to shift into parasympathetic dominance, the state responsible for rest, recovery, and deep repair. That shift is subtle, but for an aging nervous system, subtle changes often create the most noticeable improvements in daily life. And if you think about it, this makes intuitive sense. Many people notice that when their digestion is heavy at night, or when their blood sugar is unstable, or when they are mentally stressed before bed, their sleep quality drops significantly. These are all different systems, but they converge in one place: the nervous system. The brain is constantly interpreting signals from the body, and sleep is the outcome of how balanced those signals are. When the internal environment is calmer, sleep naturally becomes deeper and more continuous. But there is another layer to this that becomes especially important with age. The brain's waste clearance system, often referred to in neuroscience as the glymphatic system, becomes more active during deep sleep. This system is responsible for removing metabolic byproducts that accumulate during waking hours. If that clearance process becomes less efficient, the brain essentially carries more residual load into the next day. Over time, that burden is associated with cognitive slowing, memory lapses, and that familiar feeling many older adults describe as mental fog. Now imagine how sensitive that system is to sleep quality itself. Even small disruptions in deep sleep reduce how effectively the brain performs its overnight cleanup. This is why researchers are increasingly interested in how nutrition may indirectly support that process by improving the conditions for deep sleep. not by forcing the brain to do something unnatural, but by reducing the internal friction that prevents it from doing what it is already designed to do. And this is where consistency matters far more than intensity. The body does not respond dramatically to a single night of change. It responds to patterns repeated over time. When certain supportive compounds are present regularly in the evening, the body begins to associate that period with a slightly more favorable internal environment for repair. That does not mean olive oil is a sedative or a sleep medication. It means it may help reduce some of the biological obstacles that interfere with natural sleep architecture. As we move beyond sleep, another system begins to reveal just how interconnected everything really is, and that is your cardiovascular system. Because while most people think of heart health as something managed during the day through diet or exercise, the reality is that some of the most critical cardiovascular processes occur while you are asleep. During the night, blood pressure naturally dips in what is known as nocturnal dipping. This is a protective pattern that allows blood vessels to recover from daytime pressure. But in many older adults, that dipping becomes less pronounced. When blood pressure remains elevated at night, the heart is essentially working without full recovery time. Over years, this can contribute to arterial stiffness and increased cardiovascular strain. What becomes particularly interesting in nutritional research is how certain dietary fats and polyphenols may influence endothelial function, which is the health and flexibility of the inner lining of blood vessels. When the endothelium functions well, blood vessels respond more efficiently to changes in pressure and flow. When it becomes impaired, circulation becomes more rigid and less adaptive. Extra virgin olive oil has been studied extensively in relation to this system, especially in dietary patterns associated with longevity. Populations with high long-term olive oil consumption often show better markers of vascular health, including improved lipid profiles and reduced oxidative stress on LDL particles. Oxidized LDL is particularly important here because it is not just cholesterol itself that matters, but how stable or unstable those particles are within the bloodstream. Now, bringing this back to nighttime physiology, the liver plays a major role in regulating lipid metabolism during sleep. It is during these hours that the body is most actively processing and reorganizing fats, cholesterol, and energy storage signals. When supportive nutrients are present in that window, the metabolic environment can shift in subtle but meaningful ways over time. It is not an immediate effect, but a cumulative one. And what many people find surprising is that heart health is not just about the heart itself. It is about the relationship between inflammation, circulation, and recovery. If inflammation remains elevated, blood vessels remain in a more reactive state. If recovery improves, vascular function becomes more stable. Everything is connected through rhythm, and sleep is one of the most important rhythms the body has. Now let's bring this down to something you may personally relate to. Have you ever noticed waking up in the middle of the night with a sense of restlessness, or even a slight sense of pressure in your body that you cannot fully explain? Sometimes people assume this is simply aging, but often it reflects a mismatch between metabolic activity and recovery signaling. When the body is still processing stress signals at night, sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented. This is also where digestion enters the picture in a more important way than most people realize. Because digestion is not supposed to be highly active during deep sleep, the body prioritizes repair over processing food. However, the type and timing of evening intake can influence how smoothly that transition happens. Heavier or more inflammatory meals late at night can interfere with this shift, while certain dietary fats and compounds may support a more gradual metabolic slowdown. And this leads into a broader idea that becomes central to understanding healthy aging. Your body does not work in isolated systems. The brain affects the heart. The gut affects the brain. Inflammation affects everything, and sleep sits at the center of all of it. When sleep improves, almost every other system gains an opportunity to function more efficiently. When sleep is disrupted, even slightly, the effects ripple outward in ways that accumulate over time. So as we continue exploring this, I want you to start noticing not just what you do during the day, but how your body feels as you transition into night. That transition period is often where the most important biological decisions are being made. And in the next part of this discussion, we will go deeper into how muscle recovery, metabolic stability, and even brain resilience are influenced by what happens in those final hours before sleep, when the body quietly begins its most important work of all.